welcome to this week's key story. This week we are reading The Great Energy Debate. You may notice by the way that they are dressed that this is going to be a science text that we're reading this week. Yay, science! So this week it's going to be a narrative nonfiction. Remember, like in your lesson, narrative nonfiction, narrative meaning there's a narrator, right? It tells a story. Nonfiction, meaning it's going to be true. So this is going to present some facts and information about a topic. This week, we're going to have sidebars, like what we talked about last week, where you've got information off to the side or down at the bottom, and it's in its kind of own separate box. Some other things that you're going to want to think about this week. In your lesson, remember we were learning about prefix, roots, and suffixes. The four important ones you're really going to want to think about this week as we read are non, which means not, pre, which means before, hyper, which means excessively, and bio, which means life. So if you didn't already write those down in your notes from the video before, you're going to want to write those down. Non means not, pre means before, hyper means excessively, and bio means life. Those are going to come up multiple times. They're going to come up in this text. They're also going to be coming up in your small group reading text. You're going to be having to use prefix, roots, and suffixes. So, without further ado, here we go. The Great Energy Debate. Our energy debate will be an incredible event, but I need to study. Our teacher won't tell us which side of the debate we'll be on until the day before it happens, which means we'll have to pre-plan arguments for both sides. Right there I see a word that has a prefix on it. It's the word pre-plan, and it says we have to pre-plan arguments for both sides. So pre, of course, means before. Plan means you have steps or something that you're going to do in order to know what's going to happen. For this case, they're going to be making steps for what they're going to argue about in their debate. So the pre-plan means before they get to debate, they have to have it all outlined and written out what they'd like to use if they get chosen for the for side or if you get chosen for the against side. That's typically how it goes in a debate. You're for something or you're against it. The debate will be next Tuesday and will include a discussion about different energy sources. Each team will have a microscope. One team will talk about the benefits of an energy source, and the other team will talk about its drawbacks. So one side's going to talk about the benefits, the things that are good about that energy source, and the other team has to talk about the drawbacks, the things that are bad or like take you away from wanting to use that type of energy source. We'll have to learn about the environmental consequences related to each resource as well as the costs. So consequences, remember, it's the actions. You have an action and you have something that follows that, which is your consequence. We may be asked to debate the future of gasoline as an energy source. If so, I would say that gasoline is made from oil, a fossil fuel. According to geologists, fossil fuels formed over hundreds of millions of years from ancient plant and animal remains. But here's the problem. We use these fuels, far faster than it takes them to form. Because fossil fuels are non-renewable resources, if we keep using them, there will eventually be none left. Plus, burning these fuels pollutes the air. Now I'm going to go back to the word non-renewable. You've probably heard about this in social studies or science. This has a prefix on it, the word non. But it also has a whole bunch of other prefix, roots, and suffixes chunked up in this word. So we're going to break it down kind of slowly. I see the word renew. I know that re means again, and new means it's brand new. It just happened. So if they renew something, they make it new again. Able tells me you can or you're able to do something. So they were able to make them new again. But then I put on that non part, and that completely changes renewable. Renewable means I can make them again, but then when I put on non, which means not, it means I cannot make them again. So because fossil fuels, like it said, take many, they say hundreds of millions of years for them to pressurize under the ground with all of the things going on there, I'm not going to want to use all of those up because they're really hard to get again. It is easy to be critical, or excuse me, hypercritical of fossil fuels. However, most of our cars and factories use this type of fuel. And therefore, changing everything would be a huge undertaking. So I see another word here that may be unfamiliar. It's the word hypercritical. Now, if I talk about someone being critical, it means they're kind of bringing up all the bad stuff. They're talking about all the bad stuff about something. But now if I add in that hyper means excessively. So being hypercritical means that you're excessively, like way too much, talking about all the bad stuff. So they're saying that it's easy to talk about all the bad stuff that can really happen with fossil fuels. But it would be really hard to switch over everything because almost every car and factory everywhere uses this type of fossil fuels, and you would have to change everything over to using a different type of fuel, which would cost a lot of money, and it would take a lot of time to fix all of that. Now, off to the side, you're going to see that sidebar. It's titled, What is Energy? It says, energy is the ability to do work or make a change. It also is a source of power for making electricity or doing mechanical work. We use the wind, the sun, fossil fuels, and biofuels to produce energy. Now, we talked about fossil fuels in our text. You know what the wind is, you know what the sun is. But biofuels has another prefix on it. It uses bio. Remember we talked about earlier, bio means life. But if I just say life fuels, that kind of sounds funny, right? Doesn't quite fit. So I have to go back to what that life means. Life means a living thing. So these are fuels, ways we get energy, that actually come from different living things. Like how they talked about before, the fossil fuels were formed from plants and animal remains. Those had been living things. Burning coal produces heat, energy that is converted or changed into electrical energy. We use that energy to light our houses. Solar energy comes from the sun. Solar panels convert sunlight into electrical energy. Okay, we're on to the next page. If we are asked to debate the use of wind energy, we would have to know that it is a renewable energy source. Means it can be made again and again and again and again. For example, unlike fossil fuels, wind will never run out. One large wind turbine could produce enough energy for a whole city. In addition, this method doesn't damage the environment. Turbines can be placed all over the world to capture wind energy. Then the energy from the turbines is converted or changed into electrical energy. But there is a drawback. Wind may not be as efficient as other energy sources. Only about 30 or 40% of all wind energy is changed into electricity. It would be very expensive to have wind turbines installed all over the world. This debate is important for people in the United States. Our country makes up only about 5% of the entire world's population, yet we consume about 30% of the world's energy. It is not a coincidence that students are asked to take part in these debates. We will probably have to make these decisions when we are adults. The debate will be difficult, but I will be ready. Now that this story is over, You're going to want to grab your Make Connections questions and you're going to be answering those. It's how might our dependence on fossil fuels change in the future? So remember, dependence means you're relying on it. How might it change? How might we not rely on fossil fuels in the future? Then your next question and Make Connections. Number 2, what can you do to help save energy resources? So think about it deep. Think about how that energy is used and what ways we use it in our homes, and think about what you can do to save some energy resources. And then you're going to fill out a chart. Your chart will look something like this. This week, remember, we're working with main idea and details. So you can put your main idea at the top. It's what it's mostly about. And you can then fill in 3 different details that prove to you what this main idea of your story is. Make sure that when you are doing that main idea, that it's over the entire article, not just one part of it, but the entire thing, what it's the most important idea or what it's mostly about. Remember, as always, your teachers are here for you. We are here to help. Please ask any questions that you need. We will be glad to help you. Good luck.